welcome you to another edition of CCH, Critical Conversations of Hope. My guest today is a great friend of mine who I'm excited about talking to. This is none other than Pastor Eddie Hypolite. He is a Londoner by birth, and
That's right.
if, even if I didn't say that, you'd know that because even though he lives in Australia, he hasn't quite adapted his Australian accent just yet. All you hear is straight Yachty, London Yachty. That's all you're going to hear. I'll tell you a little bit about him. If you have not heard about Eddie Hypolite, you are missing out, and or you will. Eddie Hypolite is a powerful communicator and a gifted speaker and a man who sold out for Jesus Christ. Youngest of 10, and I'm just looking at some of the things that are going on here. It's only been 20 years you've been in ministry?
Yeah.
Really?
This is my 20th year.
20 years? Man, that beard says you've been doing this forever. You earned it, though. You earned it.
This is ministry and life. This is ministry and life, ministry in life.
Oh, okay. You can't tell which grays are which. I get it. I get it.
They kind of fuse. They
just kind of fuse together. I get it. Well, Eddie, his latest thing. Oh, and by the way, I just wanted to chomp in here and tell you, I got my manifesto on this morning. Thank you for that.
Thank you, man.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
That was a blessing. Is that a book, and you're doing the audio version of a book of yours?
No, it was just a series of four sermons, 4 short talks that I wanted to produce for Easter.
That made me
out there for Easter.
Wow, that made me feel like I was reading. What's my favorite author who writes books on the life of Christ, and it just flows. It's just like you could get up and preach it.
I was gonna say Yancey or H.D. I was gonna say N.T. Wright, but I won't be so presumptuous. You know what I mean?
What's his name? Max Lucado. Thank you, Mom.
Oh, Max Lucado. No, that's what I was thinking.
That's what I felt. That's what I felt listening. I was like, this is Max Lucado kind of stuff you got going on here.
Actually, now that you mention it, what I might do then is I might actually just, the written work, I might just edit it up and put it in a PDF and people can just get it for free. People can download it and get it for free.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm telling you, let me know, because that's what's up. So as you can kind of tell, there's a bunch that Eddie's got going on, and he also is now, tell me a little bit about EYR, Empowering Your Resilience.
Well, when I moved to Australia, I was on a 5-year contract. I was on an IDE. At the end of the 5 years, the contract wasn't renewed. And we had a choice of whether we went home or we stayed in Australia. And so that was my 18th year. It was my 18th year of ministry. And I wasn't so much concerned as to where we go next. My real prayer was, Lord, what do I do next? Because I don't want to do over the next 18 years what I've done over the first 18 years. I knew at that stage what my specific gifts are, my specific skills are. I know how I best serve the church and how I best serve the culture. And so I asked God for permission to just do ministry within my strengths. And he gave me permission. And so it meant that I was no longer within church employment. So I started this consultancy. Empowering Your Resilience. And it's a consultancy that works with outside organizations as well as church organizations around the whole area of resilience, around creating resilience cultures, around resilience and leadership. And then within church, it's within the whole area of God, church, and culture. That's my gifted area, God, church, and culture. Because of my background of theology and sociology.
Right.
So,
Right.
and because I've always done ministry as much in the community as I have in the within the church. So EYR really brings together all of those things. And so this is where I'm doing ministry. This is where I'm eating. And this is where the kingdom is operating right now. And it's been good. It's been, you know, it has its own struggles, obviously, but it's been a really beautiful space. And I'm grateful for God for giving me permission to be in this space, you know.
Amen. Amen. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting, and we're kind of dovetailing into where we are in our conversation. But what I find interesting as I'm listening to all of that, because you know all of this is new to me. We're catching up as we're
yeah. I know.
It's been a minute. You know, life is gone. It's a few years and a few pounds have gone on since before. But
that's why I'm wearing black, man. You know, black covers a multitude of sins.
That's it. That's what I need to learn. I should have worn the shirt I had on yesterday. That's what that is. But one of the things I find really interesting is that this shift, this Corona shift. First of all, I believe I was on with my conference president earlier, and we were both affirming the fact that whatever comes after this is over, we won't be able to go back to a normal, not like it was, and nor should we be going back to a normal. But I sense that a lot of things that were, you do this and you do this and you do this, and these are the norms that we have, are getting broken up in the midst of, and it feels kind of like, you know, God set you to be where you are because a lot of ministry is coming in the direction of where you're sitting. When we look at the last days, you know, it's not going to be a bunch of us that are checking our email to find out if the check has dropped.
You know, I think,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's interesting you make that point, because in my home city of London and my home conference, South England conference, they've furloughed now 50% of the ministers. 50% of the ministers are on furlough. And I think what it's doing for all of us who are called to ministry, it's refining the whole point of our calling in the first place. Was you called to ministry, or was you called to employment?
Yes, indeed.
Because the thing is, when we were first called, we had that fire, and that fire said, you know, and we was all of us, and I know you would have been the same. Even if you don't get employed, you're still going to find a way to fulfill this call.
Give me an opportunity to preach the word.
You're still going to find a way to, you're still, all right, I'll go back into the world of work, but I will still fulfill my calling. And I think what happened to me 2 years ago with this, you know, pre-COVID situation, is that I realized that my calling was always first to the kingdom. And it was an awakening, like, no, your call was always first to separate your life and separate your heart to the kingdom, and then the Spirit will decide, you know. So whether it be in church pastoring, whether it be in teaching, whether it be in chaplaincy, wherever it may be, the Spirit will decide where your life will best serve the kingdom. And so I feel like this situation for us now, especially as a church, I think what it's creating is not so much what does church look like, but what does it mean now that we are the church? Because all of us have to deal with the fact that no, churches are now our homes.
Yes, indeed.
All of us have to go back to the biblical idea that, oh, I am the temple of the Holy Spirit, within which God resides, you know, because all the mechanisms of church. And so now, not only are we figuring out, or having to figure out what it means to be present with our families in our homes that we're locked away with, and we're seeing them for the first time, or they're seeing us for the first time, but we now have to figure out what it means to be actually present with God. Take away all the trappings that we have. All right, now what does it mean to be present with God? And I think that's, I suppose I've been on that journey now for a couple of years. And so it's kind of given me clarity to where I am, and what it means to actually be here. But I think it's at the same time, Keith, I feel like for the church, man, we ain't never going back to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Some will
Mm-hmm.
go back though.
Yeah.
Some will go back, you know.
Yeah.
Some will,
Yeah.
but you're gonna get a whole section of the church that'll be like, no, I ain't going back to that. And those are the conversations we need to be having now about what happens when we're let back out of our doors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, yeah. You know, those are the conversations.
I agree with you 100%. You know, I was just on after I did my interview this morning. I was talking with some of my media team, and you know, they were like, Pastor, what we need to, because you know, I'm a neophyte when it comes to all of this. You know, I'm up there and I preach and I know how to do that kind of stuff. And, you know, over the past several weeks, I'm relearning how to preach the gospel with the same passion. And there are no amens. You are essentially Ezekiel crying out you don't even have the dead bones, you know, there's nobody there, but you've got to preach in a way that is going to grab so that people know that you believe what it is you're preaching. Okay, great, I'm learning that, but I'm now having to learn all these other things, like you need to drive information to the website, and you got to do this, and we got to be here, and those aren't a part of what I have experienced in my life. And God is throwing me in, you know, like I told everybody, I said, this is not going to be a Red Sea situation where you get to the edge and God opens everything all night long and you can see everything's dry and then walk. It's later for that. This is a Jordan River situation. You have to get in, you have to jump in at flood tide. And a lot of us were jumping in at flood tide. So one of the things that we were saying is the gospel preached in all the world, that can be done in a few clicks on your computer at this point in time. You can hear a message now and share. And it can go. If we understand that, you realize, talking about cutting things short in righteousness, if we get that fully, if we understand what's at our disposal, this is a brand new thing. We're not talking about passing out pamphlets. We're not, boom, it's the gospel is right there at your fingertips. And it's so easy for the gospel to get spread.
I feel like it's going to be a combination of two things. I feel that it's going to be a combination of, because you know me, I am, my thing is community. My thing is the actual connection with people, you know. And I think the mistake that Christianity period has made, and this is right across the board, I think the mistake that Christianity has made is that in the culture that we find ourselves in, we forget that now we have to earn the right to speak the name of Jesus Christ. We have to earn the right to speak the name of Jesus Christ. We ain't just rolling up in the place like King Kong and saying Jesus and hoping, especially in Western culture, you know what I mean? In Eastern culture, it's easy because they haven't rejected the idea of the divine. So you're going in, they already accept the idea that there is a divine God. So when you're going in there and you're presenting the gospel, they're realizing, oh, that God is Jesus. That God isn't this God, you know. So that making that switch isn't difficult because they accept the idea of the divine. Here in Western culture, we rejected the idea of the divine like 80, 90 years ago almost. You know what I mean? I mean, definitely at least about 50, 60 years ago. And so now we have to retell the gospel story all over again. We really do. We have to go back and retell the stories all over again. So where we find ourselves now, I feel like it's an opportunity. It's a combination of both things. I believe it's going to be the combination of the information, but more than the information, it's going to be the confirmation of the information has to be the life of the person. The confirmation of the information. And so I feel like in this period, what this is going to do is actually, as you know, if we're sensible about the way we articulate, what it will do, it will shine a deep light, because all of us who are Christians, our non-Christian neighbors, now all of a sudden they're interested in Christianity and spirituality.
Yes, they are.
Because they want hope. They want hope beyond the situation. And I feel like when the bans are lifted and we begin to eke back into everyday life, I feel that the affirmation and the confirmation of all the stuff that we've been saying, that's when we have the opportunity for people to put word and life together. You know what I mean? At the moment, all they're going to hear is word, and where we can reach out to them, where we can maybe, you know, make sure that neighbors have something to eat, and phone delivery food, and make sure you go over. And there are ways in which we can still connect and be community to the world as well as to our own church community. But it's when we leave and go back to our communities, once this is over, and we connect word and life, then I feel like that is what's going to really accelerate the way in which people hear this preached gospel. Because right now, all we have is words. And now words have to matter. Words have to matter. And the way in which we articulate God has to matter, you know. You know, we have to be all heart about how we do that. You know, I don't think that we have been. We've been more all information.
Yes. All information at all times. You know, I think even that aspect, the life aspect, because, you know, you mentioned earlier on in our conversation that, you know, God is stripping away your excuses for why you can't spend time with him. Oh, you working too hard? Okay, I got you.
Okay. I got you.
I got you.
Oh, you ain't got time.
You ain't got time. Oh, you ain't got time. All right. You ain't got time to see your kids because you're earning a living. Okay, all right. I got you. I got you. And so all of these things being stripped away, coming at this juncture, is so that who we are when we go back can be different enough that life matches work.
And if we get that, then believe me, we're going to look back at this period and we're going to say that this was the seminal moment.
Yes.
This was the seminal moment when all of a sudden there was a true revival in the church. Yes. You know what I mean? There was a true revival in the church. There was a true renewal of what the gospel means. You know, you know, for me, it isn't about present truth. It's about truth that is present.
Come on now. I like that.
Yeah.
So if I preach that, don't get mad at me.
Present truth is just about information to the world. Yeah. But when we look at the way truth is never presented as information in the Bible. Truth is a person in the Bible.
Yes, sir.
Truth is always, and we establish truth in the biblical world. Truth is established by God acting, we seeing it, we believe in it, and that became truth for us. All of a sudden, we've switched it, and it's like, no, it's information. I'm like, come on now, man. You don't pray to information when you're in problems. We don't. You ain't praying to information now that COVID is here.
No,
you know what I mean?
No, not at all.
No. You are praying to the God that is truth. Jesus says, I am way, I am truth, I am life. You know, and so truth is about truth that is present. You know, it's not enough about just preaching present truth. Are you being truth that is present? You know what I mean? What is the truth of God in you that is present? You know, and I feel say like this period is the time in which God redefines that for us. You know, it's not changing what we're saying. It's really just it's thinking about how we're saying it and just saying it. You know what Jesus said, you have heard it say, but I say unto you. Jesus weren't saying nothing new, you know. Yeah. Jesus was saying the same thing, but he was saying, this is what it means. You know, and I feel say like Keith, like this is the opportunity that if we can get that, and if we can begin to do that now, not then, now is the time that we do it. Now that we have everyone's attention, now that we have each other's attention,
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is the discussion that we need to be having, because once the ban is lifted, there's a whole generation of millennials that are going left.
Mercy.
Yeah, they ain't coming back. You know what I mean? They ain't, you know. And then the generation behind them, Generation Y, Generation Z, forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Forget it. You know, we are already, you know, my daughter, the other morning, she said, yeah, I'm going to church with my friends, Dad. I said, what? She said, yeah, we're going to my church, my friend. Her friends were getting together across Zoom and having their own church service together. She's 16.
Mm.
So, like, so it's already shifted.
Yeah.
It's literally already shifted. You know what I mean? This is their age, and they are sitting comfortably in this space.
Yeah.
They're sitting comfortably in this space. So, you know, I feel like it honestly, it's not a time that anybody should be fearful of. I feel like it's a time that is hopeful. It's a time that's encouraging. I know that we're losing people. I know that ministers are losing job. Well, they're not losing jobs. They're being furloughed. They're still on pay. That means that it's now the time of the local church leaderships to actually step in there and really lead the flocks.
Yeah.
Truly lead the flocks. Like in London, SEC, now I'm starting to have conversations with ministers who are being furloughed about, all right, well, what does this now look like for your leadership teams? How do your leadership teams, and you step away, you know what I mean? You step away so that these leadership teams, your elders and your boards, and that can actually step into that place of leadership, you know, while you are being forced to be furloughed, you know? And so it's you know, everything that we have, I feel like every pressure that you've been in, every piece of well, everything that you've been through in ministry has brought you to this space.
Yeah.
You know, all the pressure, all the problems, all the upheaval, all, you know, everything. I think if you take a moment, just as ministers, for instance, just to breathe, you'll realize, all right, then I'm here. And if you know that you aren't, this is your opportunity to like say, like, all right, I need help.
Press reset.
I need help. Yeah, who's gonna help me here? You know,
and even the ability to help, is more prevalent now than ever before.
Oh man, yeah, because you got their attention.
Exactly.
Let's have a conversation. It ain't gonna be nothing for people to sit down like me and you are doing right now. And say, all right, then let me know what you're going through. I can share a screen. I can give you instant information. You know?
I can send you this.
I don't even need to email you nothing.
Yes.
Let me show you my screen. Take a picture. I can put the information in the chat. You can download it to your, listen. It's right fluid. There. It's fluid. Yes, it you know, absolutely. So there ain't no reason why anybody, especially through leadership, who is struggling, can't get instant help. You know? And so, I think COVID has changed everything. It's changed everything, you know. Absolutely. Right back to what you said at the beginning. It's changed everything, you know.
You know, I was talking with my leadership team, and I was like, okay, because one of the big areas that, of course, is going to drive a lot of shifting, and we've kind of alluded to it, is resources and funds. How those get distributed, how much of that gets distributed, recognizing that there are going to be a lot of natural pullback from the chain, and the normal chain that this goes to the union and this conference and the union and then the division and all of those kinds of things. Priorities are going to shift, and even the monies that are coming are going to be, they're going to be folks saying, why am I sending this to Washington, D.C. when the people down the street need a meal?
And they're hungry.
And they're hungry.
Yeah.
I can in good conscience put this in an envelope knowing that I got to send it and I got to wait for it to come back, and in what form. So a lot of things are shifting and changing when it comes to that, and when we start to deal with the resource perspective on how all of those things get done. And I'm talking to my leadership team about simple things. One of my elders said, because we're like, all right, make sure you get them the online giving and this, that, and the other. And so to emphasize that when you get up and talking to one of my members said, we're marketing this as if we're only talking to folks who are in Adventist online giving. There are going to be folks who are listening to what's going on, that are hearing, that are just perusing. They're looking for hope, and God has guided them in the direction, and they're catching your broadcast and going, wow, that ministered to me. Wow, that gave me comfort. I sure would like to say thank you, but I'm not going to Adventist online giving to do this. Is there, do you have a Cash App? Oh, how about that? Simple things like that the world has been using, that all of us have been using, that it's a completely different avenue, completely different perspective, and we've got to grow and adapt in those particular ways.
I feel like, especially for churches who, our model of doing church is commuter. So people travel from wherever they travel. The average Adventist, we pass 5 churches in order to get to the church that we worship at, but we don't live in that community. We only worship in that community. So we leave the community we live in, go worship at this church and 4 communities over, and then come back. So there is no real investment in that local community, apart from the fact that we pitch up there on a Sabbath. And yet there are needs within that community. There are hurts within that community. And there is great need of help within that community. And I think that churches who operate under that commuter model, and they're not in their churches now. Like, for instance, here in Australia, the government has locked down all churches, all public meetings, everything for the next 6 months. You know what I mean? The government has done that. So we're not having no church service for the next 6 months. Yet the needs and the hurt in our communities still remain. We have a food pantry service that we would do on a Thursday. All of those needs still remain. People still hungry. You know what I mean? And so I feel like for those churches that are commuter churches, now is probably the time to think about, what is it that's in our community that we can actually feed into, that we can actually support. We're not there physically, but if there's a local food pantry doing something, if there's a local, if there is a local community service program taking place, if there is something that is helping to meet the immediate needs of people during this time of separation and isolation, and they encourage people to feed into that. That means that when you go back to your communities, and the communities have a sense, oh yeah, you were the ones that helped me during that period. You were the ones that were with me during that period. You were the ones that did food parcels and just dropped them at my door during that period. It was you all, so you're going back, having created a bridge and making connection in that space, and I think local churches are going to really think about now. They're thinking about, all right, what do we do with the money that is coming in? Who actually needs it the most? Seriously, who actually needs it the most? Do we send it up, or do we just send it out? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
In London, you got churches with massive trust funds, and I'm like, now is the time to dip into your trust funds and help the people in your congregation and the people in your community.
Yes, indeed.
Because they've got trust funds that they've had like the past 20, 30 years. I'm like, all right, now is the time you need to actually use that now. Now is the time. Because no one ever knew that the world could change like this. The whole world at the same time. The whole world the same time.
Absolutely.
The whole world the same time.
Absolutely.
No one even thought that was possible. Shut down the whole planet. Shut down the whole planet. There's no movement in the air. There's no movement on the land. nothing. I'm just
Absolutely.
like, yeah. And where's your trust fund now? What's the trust fund doing now?
What's it gonna do? And who you gonna get to get the money out for you anyway? Because they're at home.
Like literally, you know. And so I think, yeah. This. I think what this has done is, and I feel like what this is doing in a beautiful way, it's making us rethink everything. Rethink everything. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And yeah, and for that reason alone, that's why we're not going back to do the same thing that we were doing before.
Can't.
Yeah, we just can't. We literally will not survive. We will literally. I feel like we was just about making it, you know, and then God was like, all right, let me put a pause on the whole planet before these people mess up the whole thing. Yeah, boom. Let me put a pause on the whole planet. You know, just for my people. I'm serious. Let me put a pause on the whole planet. And so, like, I feel like, yeah, this is a good period. You know what I mean? We're suffering loss. And let me not make light of it, because so many people are suffering loss during this period. But, you know, as we think about what God is trying to do in the greater picture and what God is trying to make available to us in the greater picture.
Let me get your perspective as we're talking about this greater picture. Let me get your perspective on this, and I will start off by being transparent about my own particular perspective when it comes to. I'll answer my answer, and then you feel free to answer in any way that it is you feel possible. As we're looking at that greater perspective, there are a lot of folks who are looking and they're saying, is this the 7 last plagues? Is this where are we in Bible prophecy? And is this what it is? And they're trying to fit COVID into the Revelation situation. And I'll tell you where I have been convicted we're at. While I believe this is the beginnings of sorrows, I don't believe this is those. And here's my perspective. When the Bible says there will come a time like never before, suffering like never before. If COVID-19, at least as how it exists right now, is what God had in mind, then he's going to have to apologize to Pharaoh in Egypt. Because, he came down harder on Egypt than COVID-19. Are you serious?
The Spanish flu in the 1900s came down.
Come on. You know, you can go through all of the different plagues that have taken place.
When it happened then, man, we're talking millions of people.
Yes.
Millions.
This is not that. This can't be that. And what I think it is, and like I said, I'm just sharing my own perspective, and you can jump in on that. What I think this is God did just that. He pushed everything on pause. And so I'm going to give you a chance to think about this, because none of y'all would be ready if I didn't give you this opportunity to give you plague light, if you will. Not to minimize anybody's suffering, as you're saying, but I'm going to give you a light affliction, so that your brains are triggered, and folks who have been just wandering, just rolling, people who know better, have been living less than what they know, are now going, wait a minute now, wait a minute. I know what this is. It's time for me. And all of those kinds of things, God's giving you this time. And it's more for us as the church in these last days, for you to be thinking, pop into gear, get your head on straight, and then recognize that this is go time for you, because when we get to the real deal, it's too late to play. Where do you see we are?
I see that we're, one of the burdens with being Adventist is the burden of being right. Oh my Lord, it's believe me, it's a heavy crown that we wear. We believe in righteousness by faith and righteousness by facts. And I think, And I think that our eschatology has made us lazy.
Mhm.
It's made us lazy. And it's made us lazy in that all we do is we read and we look. That's what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's literally how we're inching one step by the step, you know.
Yeah.
But the message says that they are angels flying in the midst of heaven. That means they're engaged, they're moving. It's dynamic. And I feel like what this has done, I believe that where we are is we're in a place where God has just like flicked the world. And he said to us, you need to look at me.
Mhm.
You specifically are called to look at me and to make the world look at me, you know, because what we're doing is we're trying to fit everything into what we think is our scheme. Yeah, but you didn't think that COVID could change the world in 1 second. So
No,
the
you
book of
didn't.
Revelation is never designed for us to look at beasts, look at signs, look at,
Come on now.
see
Preach
it,
that.
see it.
Yeah.
But the more we see it, yeah, the more we see it is the more we're confirmed and affirmed in our faith in Jesus Christ.
Yes,
The
indeed.
only people who are going to make it in this period are the people who know how to look to Jesus.
Amen.
Because
Amen.
every one of them is designed for you to say, no, don't look at that. Oh, did you hear the sound? Yeah, all right, well, keep looking at me. You know, don't look at the COVID. You're going to drown.
Yeah.
Keep looking at me. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You're going to drown. And I think one thing that we cannot do at the moment as Adventists is just get caught up in this whole hysteria. You know, otherwise we're going to start to sound like conspiracy theorists.
Yes,
We're going to sound no different from David Icke and all the rest of them. You know what I mean? We literally ain't, you know, with COVID and 5G. And I'm just like, oh man, please stop. Like literally stop now. You know what I mean? The signs are affirmation and confirmation that he comes.
Yes.
But the book of Revelation teaches that the church is in the hands of Jesus and Jesus wins, you know? So just keep your eyes on him. Keep focused on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now that you see the period in which you live in, you know what I mean? Think about how that now has to drive you into a deeper place of commitment to him and love for him and love for the people that he's trying to speak to in this space and love for the families that are around you, you know? So I feel like for me, there's too many signs taking place one time for me to take note of any of them, you know? I came into the church I came into the church in 1980. Right back then, John Paul was the Pope, you know? Ronald Reagan was the beast, and then Reagan wasn't the beast, and then after Reagan, my boy
Bush.
was the beast. The next
Bush.
American man was the beast.
Yes.
You know, and
Bush.
then after
George Bush.
and then Bush was the beast, and then after Bush was the beast.
It was Clinton who was the beast.
Clinton was the beast, and after Clinton was the
Bush
beast,
again.
and Bush was the beast, and then, you know, we felt left out of the story, so we got a black beast, you know what I mean? And the black beast didn't work out, so we got an orange beast. I'm like, come on, like, enough.
Oh my goodness.
And Jesus is like, hello. Hello.
You're missing it.
Hello. You know, so I feel like there are too many signs for us to keep up with any of them. And I honestly do believe that the closer we get to Jesus, the more Jesus through his Spirit is going to help us make sense of the times. You know what I mean? But if all we're doing is just looking sign, we are trying in our flesh to discern spiritual things, and spiritual things are only spiritually discerned.
You know, I was talking.
For me,
go ahead.
You know,
go ahead.
So for me right now, Keith, I'm like, all right then. Now that I see this, all right, let me stay longer on my knees. Yeah.
Yes.
Let me stay longer on my knees and let me hear what the Lord is distilling. You know, I know as an Adventist, Jesus is coming.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I know he's coming. I came into the church in 93. I got baptized in 93. In 1990, the Lord asked me to go into ministry. And I said no. And the reason why I told him no was because I was convinced that he was coming in around about 92. I'd watched all the DVDs.
Mercy.
I'd listened to all the tapes. Remember back there was a whole bunch of people who said they were lying in their bed, they were nearly dying, and an angel came into the room and said that Jesus had left the holy place and was taking off his robe. And, you know, so as far, I watched all of it. I read all the stuff. And so I was convinced, and the Holy Spirit said, no, go on train. Just go on a train. And I'm like, no, you're coming. And he said, just in case I don't come, just go. Just in case. So I'm like, you sure? And I'm like, yeah. That was 1990. It's 2020 now.
And there were no gray hairs in your beard back
None.
then.
Do I still believe that Jesus is coming right away?
Yes.
Of course I do.
Yes.
Of course I do. I believe it's immediate, but it's immediate in his time, not my time.
Yes, indeed.
So my thing now is to separate myself to him, continue to walk in this life of faith, encourage the people around me to walk in the life of the faith, plan maybe for 10 years, but live and love like he's coming in 10 minutes.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. So just in case there's a little bit of continuity for the people who come behind and they've got a good path in which to walk. And you know, so that was my very, very long answer to your very short question.
Well, the question wasn't all that short, but yeah, you nailed it on the head for me. I greatly appreciate that. And the whole purpose of this is to give words of hope and folks and give people direction. And I think that's an important word. And as the pastor, I can say it, but to hear stuff like that coming out of others and they're like, okay, pastor's not just on a bench. This is where we need to be focused. And everything you're saying, I'm just shouting hallelujah and underlining. This is where we need to be focused. Whatever's going on, the ultimate thing is get close to Jesus. Anchor yourself in him. In him. Better than ever before.
Yeah.
In him we have our salvation. Not anything
Paul says,
else.
I know in whom I have believed.
Yes.
Paul didn't say, I know in what sign I have believed.
Exactly.
He said, I know who I have believed. And I am persuaded that he is able.
Yes, indeed. Not it.
I mean? And that's what I'm saying. Our eschatology can make us lazy. You know what I mean? Because what we're doing is we're like, is it now? No? All right, then I'll be back.
Right.
Is it now?
Pretty
no.
much. Pretty much.
That's how we're doing faith. I'm like, come on now, man.
Pretty much. And the deception with that is the thought that if it were now, if you are seeing the signs of the last days and it were now, that somehow you have a trigger and a switch that you can flick on and you're going to be who it is you need to be simply because you know what time it is. That's like saying, I'm going to study for the exam the day I have the exam. No. Whatever has been your habit, that's what comes out.
I feel like what's taking place now is we're understanding the difference between truth as information and truth as a person.
Yes, indeed.
Those who understand truth as information, you know, and those who understand truth as a person, they're calm.
Yeah.
If it's now, all right, well, it's now. You know what I mean? And those who understand truth as information, it don't work like that. You know what I mean? It's a person that's coming for us. It's a person that's coming for us. It's not a set of ideas that is coming for us. It's a person.
It's funny that you say it that way. A wonderful illustration just pops in my brain. When a woman is about to deliver a baby, you got the husband and you got the woman who's about to deliver the baby. And the husband, all he has is information. He knows that it's about the right time And when the water breaks, now is the time for you to get the woman who has the child.
She knows.
It's usually, even though she's the one going through the most pain, the one who's going nuts is a husband who will not deliver the child.
No.
All he's got is information. He's looking at signs. Oh, water's breaking. We gotta, it's the woman that's like, hubby, calm down. Call the doctor, get the car. Yes, and we got the exact same dichotomy. You've got folks who are not impregnated with the Spirit of God. They are not going to deliver, but they are, because in the absence of having the presence with them, they got information. And information gets you, but when you have the presence, you can know if it comes now, it's now. If it comes a little later, well, it's later. Here's the thing that I know: if I'm impregnated, it's gonna come.
It's gonna. That one thing you do know, that baby was gonna be born. You know what I mean?
It's gonna come.
Yeah, that baby's gonna be born, man. Push, lady,
it's gonna
push.
come one way or the other. It's gonna come. And the object at the end of time is for us not to be watching those who are pregnant, but to be pregnant with the Spirit ourselves.
Exactly, man. Yeah. I feel like this is the Adventism at its core, at its very core, is a Jesus movement.
Yes, it is.
You know, Adventism isn't a movement that's called to bring the world to Adventism. Adventism is a movement is a movement that is called to highlight the presence of Jesus Christ. Let me tell you, I was in Norway. I was in Denmark a few years ago, and I was preaching at one of our Adventist schools there. And because Denmark is an egalitarian society, you know, if non-church kids want to go to an Adventist school, the government has to pay for them to go to an Adventist school. You know what I mean? People can. So obviously in this school, 80% of the kids are non-churched. So I'm preaching there, yeah? And I was preaching at school in the morning for about 10 minutes with an interpreter. And then in the evening, I would flesh it out a bit more. And so I was preaching under Paul, preaching from Paul 1, where Paul said, "Blessed be the God of our Father." So I was taking out those words. So in the morning, I would talk about God who has blessed us. And I talk about what blessing means, and, you know, and who has chosen us and who has adopted us, you know, and who has forgiven us. And I would flesh it out in the evening. Anyway, around about Thursday, this young girl came to me, about 19 years old. She said, "Can I speak to you?" I said, sure. So we sat down. She says, "You are making me doubt everything that I believe in." You know. So I said, "Well, baby, what do you believe in?" She said, "I believe in karma. I believe in karma." She said, "But I've been listening to you talk about a God who journeys in this human story with us, who knows us. He doesn't leave us. He's invested. He understands how we feel. He, you know," and she said, "And the more you spoke about him, I'm just beginning to doubt everything that I believe when it comes to karma." I said, "Well, I said, the Bible teaches a form of karma. You know, the Bible teaches the principle of karma in that what you sow, you reap." I said, "But the Bible doesn't allow karma to rule all life, because sometimes you reap things you didn't sow." You know what I mean? Yeah, sometimes you pay the price for another man's mistake. You know, I said, "But keep in this space and continue to journey." And believe me, I thought about that girl and what she had said for months, and I was thinking, look at that. We're trying every single which way to make the gospel, to make the gospel appeal to people. And we're trying to think, well, how do we make our teachings appeal? How do we make this doctrine that we have appeal? And I was like, no, we're getting it back to front. Go back and just tell the biblical story. Just teach the biblical story. That's all. Because we're talking to a whole generation that think Genesis is an app. You know what I mean? They think Habakkuk You know, they think Habakkuk is something that, you know, you can get it by Uber Eats. Have you had Habakkuk before? No, believe me, you should try it. You should try it with
Isn't
lentils, man.
that rapper? Isn't that rapper? I heard him. DJ Habakkuk.
I'm serious. And what we need to do is literally go back and patiently and systematically just tell the biblical story again, but place God back at the center of the story and place ourselves in the middle of that story. And let the people just hear God speaking into their lives again. Then you can go back and teach them all the other things. But you've literally got to introduce the idea that God can be in the human story and be in the human story in a way that people see him and they connect with him. Like, yeah, I understand. Oh, all right, then, yeah, I understand it. I understand that, you know? And so, like, for where we find ourselves now, I feel like now is that opportune time to really be thinking about that, to really be thinking about the way in which we articulate God and articulate him in such a way that people can actually, they can understand that he's present. No, that kind of God, I understand. Yeah. That kind of God in that kind of situation, I do understand that. Because God is already in the culture ahead of us, long before us, you know what I mean? Long before us. And if we tell the story in that way, you know, and I think that's what we're called to do. If we tell the story in that way, then people will understand the beauty and they'll see the power of Jesus being consistently in this human story with us, you know, and that's what people need to see. And that's what Adventism is called to. Adventism isn't a defense of Adventism. Adventism isn't called to be a defense of Adventism. Adventism is called to speak a revelation of Jesus Christ. That's what. And I feel like that this is what this period has done, where God has just flicked. Like, hold on. And he's like, hello. Hello, yeah.
It's me. Yes,
it's
indeed.
me. Yeah, man, it's me.
Well, Doc, it has this time has flown by, and we just have a few more minutes. I wanna thank you so much for being so generous with your time with us.
No, it's a pleasure.
In these closing moments, if you just take a few minutes and give just a last minute thing, whatever is on your heart, whatever God would have you to say at this time, just minister to our people.
Let me let the psalmist say it for you. Let me let the psalmist say it for you. We are in this space together, and God is going to speak into all of us together. Believe me, I believe that God is speaking with a single voice into a collective people, and he wants us to hear him, that he is present, that he knows us, that regardless of how difficult the time we will experience, that is the space in which he will speak deepest to us and he will speak clearest to us. Let me read Psalms 20 for you as a blessing. The Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the God of Jacob, may the name of the God of Jacob protect you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and give you support from Zion. May he remember all your offerings and regard with favor your sacrifices. May he grant your heart's desires and fulfill all your plans. And may we shout for joy over your victory. And in the name of our God, set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions. So that's my word of blessing. That's my word of blessing. And my last word of encouragement. And thanks for this, Rich. It's been a blessing. It's been a blessing.
We got to do it again. We're gonna take a passage of scripture, open it up.
Oh man, yeah. Let's do it that way. Let's open it up.
We're gonna do it the next time.
Yeah.
We'll do it the next time. I want to thank everybody who decided to join in and listen. I hope that you have been blessed. And when you get a chance, please lift up this man of God, Pastor Eddie Hypolite, who is doing ministry out there with no net, just by the presence of the Holy Spirit And, you know, it takes a lot of courage and tenacity in order to do that. And we're going to pray his strength in the Lord. And we've got other things. He's got all, this is a resource that I'm going to plug in. That's why I'm saying Acts 2. If you don't know who Eddie is, you will know, because you're going to hear that accent a great deal in the coming weeks, months, and years as we go through, if God says the same. But we want to thank you again, Eddie. Our best to you and your family. Thank you for coming in, and we will see you again next time here or next time up there. Same to everybody. God bless and have a wonderful day.